Sitting here with Jaguars owner Shad Khan, and we haven't had the opportunity to speak with you in quite a while.
Yes.
Coming off the 2019 season, a bit of a roller coaster of a year, some highs and some lows. We'll get into all of those storylines, but first, an announcement was made today. The Jaguars will be playing 2 games in London in 2020, and everyone wants to know why.
I think if you go back, when I was announced as the owner 8 years ago, I think I said that really my goal was to keep Jaguars in Jacksonville, and we will have to think unconventionally, and we'll have to have a different playbook. And I think if you look at what we did, that pretty much what do we have to do to win on the field? That's paramount to us. But then we have to win off the field, which is to be able to generate the revenue, to invest in the team, to help it win and play a role in really growth, vitality of Jacksonville. So I've always felt the NFL team should win on the field and also make a difference in the community they're in. This ties in on both of those aspects. First thing was we wanted to get a great game day experience for the fans, and really, it was important for us to invest in the stadium, in a publicly owned stadium. We invested over $100 million, and I think the game day experience is pretty good. And then we want more people coming to Jacksonville. That led to the development of Daly's Place. And we have about 50 events there every year, which is bringing people in to the city and obviously generating growth and activity. And now we have really the ultimate project, Lot J, that's been talked about for over 50 years in Jacksonville. And I think with the city, myself and the power of the Jaguars, it's going to become a reality. And over the next 3 years, there's going to be, just physical disruptions. We're talking about, taking the highway overpass down so we have access to the river, and really mixed-use development, hotels, entertainment, etc., jobs, I think, which are really the core of it, right close to the stadium. So what is the best thing for the Jaguars at this point? In my opinion, is that we play 2 back-to-back games in London.
What do you tell Jaguars fans that think the team is then moving?
Okay, you got to remember 8 years ago, when I was introduced in Jacksonville, the rumors were the team had been moving for years before that. Okay, I've always said this, and I think our actions really have proven. That's the most important thing, judge actions, not words, is we want to invest in the area, we want to keep the Jaguars in the area, but we want them to be vital, competitive, and, a force in the area to help the growth, economy, the vitality, and bring energy.
So let's go to the Lot J update, the timeline of that. When do you foresee the restaurant being open, the apartments being moved into? When do you foresee all of that happening?
Well, our goal is to break ground here by end of March. Obviously, the city still, we're waiting on some to get the final deal done, but it's very close. So once that's done, construction starts. I think it's about 18 months to 2 years before you would see that, and then about 3 years to wrap it up.
And you said that this has been a plan years and years in the making. What was the model? How did this idea come about that this needed to be done in Jacksonville?
Well, you cannot have a vibrant city unless you have a vibrant downtown core. I think that's urban planning 101. And if you go back historically, how do you have growth downtown? How do you reinvigorate it? That's been a subject of discussion for a long time, way before my time. But it hasn't happened. They haven't been able to get it done. And Lot J, obviously, it's the city help. We have really a world-class global partner, Cordish, working with us, and it's something, what we're going to do, we think will really move the needle for the city of Jacksonville, help the growth, and again, if Jacksonville's growing, we're going to benefit as Jaguars.
So let's get into the storylines of 2019.
Okay.
Lots of chapters, and I think probably the chapter that everyone would want to read most is what happened with Jalen Ramsey.
Okay. I think, this is a subject matter that's been really covered greatly, but when it's all said and done, for us it's been, if a player doesn't want to be there, there's not much you can do. Other than I think we want to, at that point, our goal was Jalen stay there. He chose not to. We got a fair deal with the Rams and we move on.
Jalen was pretty vocal about the issues he had with the fining system with the NFL. With the NFLPA news, how much of that influenced Executive Vice President of Football Operations being let go?
But I think, if you look at Tom, the franchise, he was there, the embryo, the start really of the franchise. The success it had was with Tom. For us, 3 years ago, getting Tom back was very good. He really instilled some basic, principles that were missing, and voila! I mean, we were in the championship game. It's hard to believe 2 years ago. So you talk about a roller coaster ride. So, but really, I mean, there were a number of things where the time was right for us to really make this change. I think, Tom had contributed and we were ready to kind of move on, and this was the right thing to do for everybody.
So it's safe to say the Jaguars have fallen below expectations the past 2 seasons, a 6-win season, a 5-win season. Yet you decided to be in the best interest of the team to keep Doug Marrone and Dave Caldwell. Why is that?
Because I think it gives us the best chance to win now. They know the strengths and the weaknesses. I think, I had a very candid, very thorough conversation with both of them, really before making the decision that I think it's better, we continue, but obviously with changes. They know where our players overachieved, where they underachieved, where our weaknesses are. And I thought the best chance we have of really having a good season coming up is to let them continue with changes and really strengthen other areas.
If you log on to Twitter, which I'm sure you do all the time, you have a lot of time on your hands. Fans are clamoring, clean house, light it on fire, start it all over. What do you tell fans who are desperate for change when there is no change, saying next year is going to be better?
Well, I think change for the sake of change normally doesn't produce the results you want. And I think there are plenty of examples. You're a journalist. I think look around the league. There are plenty of teams that change coaches every year, every other year. Is that a winning formula? I think so. There is a huge amount of emotion. I mean, I love the idea of emotion. The fans care. They care because they want to have, a winning football team. There's also the the human emotion of seeing punishment somehow. But when it's all said and done, you look at it with a rational mind. The direction we're headed, I think, gives us the best chance.
During the last week of the season, we were in the locker room a good amount of time, and leaders in the locker room like Calais Campbell, A.J. Boye, Avery Jones, longest tenured Jaguar, were sticking up for Doug Marrone and saying he deserves to be the head coach. And I know you met with a few of those players one-on-one. Did that go into your decision?
Well, I think it does play a role, but I think that's just one data point. And really, I was asking the players, this was not a vote by any means, or wasn't exactly, keeping football leadership by democracy. Football is not a democracy. But it was really getting their insight as to how we think we fell short. And more importantly, if you don't understand that, you're not learning from history, then, and what do we have to do now, to be successful in the future?
So from the outside looking in, it seems like there's not much change going on. But I know there is change because Doug and Dave now are here reporting directly to you, correct?
That is correct, yeah. And, we have obviously, one of the first things was really even before the season ended, what would be the plan, okay, moving forward? What do the Jaguars stand for? And I mean, somehow, some way, we got away from, the basics. If you go back a couple of years ago, it's whether we're running the ball or whatever, our defense. So what do we stand for? What kind of a team are we? And the most important thing is our focus, which I've emphasized to them, is you need to focus on winning really 6 games. Our 3 opponents are in our division. If we can do that, we'll have a good chance. So our team, how do we match up against those 3 teams? And what are we going to change player-wise, scheme-wise, etc., where we'll have a better chance of winning against those teams. So the plan I have is, to see how they're executing. Obviously, as we move forward, I think we have really good draft capital. We will have. We'll have to look at the roster, but I think we'll have flexibility when it comes to salary cap to make some. Really add some players, address our basic needs if we can't do those through the draft. So, we have the resources if we have a clear vision and a plan to have a winning team next year.
Definitely sounds like a plan is in place, and with Doug and Dave now reporting directly to you, is it safe to say you're going to take on a bigger role with this team?
Yeah, it's a little different role, quite frankly, and there is always, a fine line between abdication and delegation, okay? Between micromanagement and, being AWOL. So where are those lines? And but really, yes, I'm playing a little different role.
On to the next chapter of the 2019 season. Probably the one no one expected to happen was the quarterback shakeup. Super Bowl MVP comes in free agency, lights it up during training camp, gets hurt the first game. 6th-round rookie comes in, Minshew mania begins. So now you have 2 talented quarterbacks on the roster, but the old saying is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. How do you foresee that shaking out?
Well, first of all, I think if you have 2, you don't have one. I think that's an old adage. Frankly, this past year proved you better have 2 competent quarterbacks, okay? There were a number of teams that didn't have a competent quarterback that wouldn't have made it. So, if you look at it, where we've come from, argument could have been made we didn't have any competent quarterbacks, okay? So this is, in a way, an embarrassment of riches for us in a good way. That we do have 2 very good quarterbacks, and I think as we move forward in this season, I think training camp, whatever, the coaches will have the work cut out to determine who gives us the best chance of winning as we move forward.
Gardner Minshew mania. No one could have expected that to happen. Did you foresee him taking over the country like he has? And from your perspective, was that fun to watch?
I think it was great fun to watch, and it's great fun for the Jaguars players to really get that kind of recognition. And in a smaller market, that's harder, obviously. So you've got to have national appeal. So obviously, I'm delighted for him.
There's been an argument throughout the entire year. We've gotten a lot of opinions on it, but I definitely want to hear your opinion. Is your mustache better than Gardner Minshew's?
Mustache is in, beauty of the mustache is in the mind of the beholder, okay? So that's my rule. I think you judge, how you like them and which is better.
I'll have to say that the locker room said it was you. They're probably smart men for choosing you. So going into the questions now of 2020, two big questions are on the defensive line. Two
Yeah.
key contributors, Yannick Ngakoue,
Yeah.
Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
Starting with Yannick, talented player. Do you foresee him being in a Jaguars uniform next year?
Well, yeah, I mean, we very much want him to be, and I think so. You know, and I've talked to him, and but absolutely, it's our desire that he be back.
And Calais Campbell, I mean, you can't make the argument there's a better guy in the locker room than him right now. High performer on the field, but a huge cap hit. And business is business. Is he worth that cap hit?
I think he's a fabulous guy, okay? And I think his contributions, everybody understands, knows, respects. And both of these players, Yannick and Calais, I had chats with them, after the season. And so, I mean, certainly I'd love for them to be back, and I'm very hopeful they're going to be back.
Looking at last year's draft, Josh Allen, Jawan Taylor, Josh Allen making the Pro Bowl this year, second-year player DJ Chark making it. These young guys definitely making a name for themselves.
Absolutely. I think it's great for them to get the recognition, but as a Jaguars fan, the hope, the optimism, that what a great young core of players we have, and that we keep up this draft performance this coming year with the 9 draft picks we have. I think we're going to have a very good young team, and that was one of really the conclusions I came up with after we went over our plan, with the players for Doug and Dave for the coming year.
And finally, let's go into the summer. The new concert being announced at TIAA Bank Field, Motley Crue, Poison, Def Leppard. Why is that beneficial to have these big stadium shows in Jacksonville?
Well, I think, we talked about that, I know, last year when we had the Rolling Stones. I think it's really, really important to do that, especially if we're playing one, or in this case, this season, 2 less home games. We want to have the activity, we want to have the revenue, whether it's hotel rooms, really people who work the stadium for them. And really, also keep Jacksonville in the limelight as a source of big events.
You strike me as a big Def Leppard guy. Will you be attending the concert?
Of course I am, yes.
Okay. Def Leppard's your favorite band out of the 3?
Well, yes, I kind of relate to them more in many different ways, okay, so.
I knew it. Well, thank you, Shad, for your time, your insight on all things Jaguars. We appreciate it.
Well, my privilege. Thank you so much.